So I have chosen to do a vlog instead of the podcast for this unit, and I'll be doing my vlog on an article by Debbie Thompson, which was written in 2003 and published in the African American Review. So this article is called Is Race a Trope? Annis Deavere Smith and the Question of Racial Performativity, and I found this on EBSCO House through the UFE Library. And this article begs the question, is race a trope? And how Anna Deavere Smith's acting technique embraces this question. This article does not discuss Anna Deavere Smith's play Notes from the Field, which we discussed in our unit, because these interviews had started 10 years later in 2013, but this was written in 2003. But it touches on her acting style that is also used in Notes from the Field. So the article first discusses current acting practices to put Anna Deavere's acting approach into perspective. The philosophy that current acting approaches are based on in the United States, this article was based on things from the United States, is liberal humanism, and this is manifested in method acting and naturalistic acting. Method acting is the most widely used approach, which states that a character's identity, like their interior objectives and their appearance, both act as the outward manifestation of the character's interior identity. In naturalistic acting, the belief is that actor and character connect through a shared human nature. Distinctions between the actor and the character should then be minimized for the audience as well as the actor. The actor should recall from their own reserves of memory or imagine the character's emotion to immerse themselves in the given circumstances. The problem with this is that the character represented could be outside the character's emotional and experiential range. The way the character's emotions are portrayed are then based on the range of the actor, so there's a possibility that the character could be portrayed wrong. The author suggests that the naturalistic approach to acting is the reason why the institution of theater remains, for the most part, very conservative in its representation of racial, ethnic, gender, and sexual orientations. The article also talks about Anna Deavere Smith's acting practices, so they're described as both post-structuralist and anti-naturalistic. Her acting approach is about looking for the character outside of ourselves instead of within ourselves. In Anna Deavere Smith's approach, there is a very distinct difference between the actor and the character. There was a really interesting quote from Smith in the article that she's there intellectually and never goes away intellectually. Some actors would say that you should go away intellectually, but I'm always there. And I think what she's kind of referring to is that there is a tendency for actors to sort of like disappear within a role, especially in method acting. And that's considered like the standard, like the top of acting, but she's always very aware of how she is portraying her characters. Smith believes that the best way to represent a character is by creating a script and a performance that is as true as possible to the original experience. So Smith conducts many interviews in which she bases her plays on. She says that American character, this is another quote, lives not in what has been fully articulated, but in what is in the process of being articulated. Not in the smooth-sounding words, but in the very moment that the smooth-sounding words fail us. So she's saying that the character is more alive through their faults, and making her characters fit a script that would possibly make a better performative act is not really like doing justice to that character and really like bringing character to life. I think this way of approaching script writing actually kind of has parallels to how police violence is portrayed in the media. The story of the event of a police officer attacking a person of color with excessive force is always kind of changed in the media to fit a narrative where the police cannot be fully blamed for the crime. I just like wonder if Anna Deavere Smith feels more connected to this method of script writing because she kind of understands the frustrations around people's stories being changed to fit a better narrative. Of course, there's like other reasons which I will go through, but I wonder if that's like a part of it. So more on the article. In Anna Deavere Smith's plays, racial identity is radically performative. In one of her plays, where she interviews Carol Smith Rosenberg, Carol begs the question, is race a trope? And a trope is a figurative or metaphorical use of a word or expression. So what Carol is basically asking is race real? So this question is really interesting to me because it brings up the discussion of what is then at stake with the claim that race isn't real, and who is empowered by this statement? By disregarding racial identity, people would lose the political force around their identity, and then what would that mean for those who are oppressed? So it is argued in the article that Anna Deavere Smith's acting approach contributes to the idea that race is a trope. Anna Deavere Smith becomes her characters, whether they are a different race than she. There is a raised issue around her performance, and that is that she can accurately perform and become another race, but she is clearly an African American woman portraying another race. So this kind of defeats the purpose of her trying to encourage the audience to, in a sense, blind themselves to her race. They are conscious of the difference of her race versus the one she is performing, and they have to force themselves to ignore it. The article says that ignoring race enables white folks to escape the label prejudiced and at the same time avoid dealing with the very real problem of systematic racism in America. So there's an issue that this brings up for liberal humanists, and that is that they see this as like reverse racism of African Americans excuse me, who insist on their Black identity but wish to be viewed the same as other races. So for some liberal humanists, this is just like a confusing concept. So the author says that the important sociocultural work of our current political moment is to historicize and to demystify whiteness. So what people are missing is that in this time it is important to see whiteness as a trope and concept, but also acknowledge that racial identity has thickened under oppression. Oppressed communities need to be united in their racial identity with pride, and white people need to understand that they do not need to acknowledge their race because they already possess white privilege. So the question, is race a trope, is incredibly complicated to answer because it both is and it isn't. So the use of the word race is used to uphold racism, but the word cannot just disappear because that would also be ignoring systematic racism. The way that Anna Deavere Smith portrays race is important for the Black Lives Matter movement because she is presenting race as both anchored and mobile. The way Anna Deavere Smith acts questions the importance of race, but does not depreciate the real effects of racism. This article gives more perspective into the complications that surround the portrayal of race in theater. The approach of colorblind casting is complicated because that is implying that the race of the character has no meaning towards their identity. Anna Deavere Smith's approach is seemingly the most inclusive and has a lot of really good feedback, but as I've outlined in this vlog, her acting methods are also pretty controversial. I found this article really helpful in trying to understand the meaning of the word race and how this is a really difficult thing to acknowledge within the world of theater and just our world in general. So this is the end of my vlog. Thank you for watching.